Love ought to show itself in deeds more than in words. These words were on the entryway as I walked into every single high school class at Gonzaga. 3 weeks ago, I was on a Zoom call with a few of my friends from the Sunrise Movement. And we were feeling scared and nervous because we were seeing how the fossil fuel billionaires and lobbyists and the big pharmaceutical company lobbyists had been stripping down the Build Back Better Act and making it less powerful and less good for working people. And we were talking about what can we do? How can we not miss this chance to pass federal climate legislation? And how can we show the courage through our actions that Joe Biden and the Democrats need to be showing by putting their promises and their commitments into policy? And a few of my friends said, what if we went on hunger strike? And I felt in my gut this sense of fear. Would we really have to do that? And I was on this call actually at my friend Annie's house, and she had invited me and some friends over for jambalaya. And I was, in the other room, in the Zoom meeting with my friends from all across the country, and we were thinking about what would this look like. And I felt scared. I just wanted to hang out with my friends and eat jambalaya. I didn't want to have to put my body through a thing where I wouldn't eat and where my body would start breaking down my muscles in order to not die. And so I got off that call and I was leaning more towards no than yes. But 30 minutes later, the New York Times put out an article and it said that Joe Biden had given up on the centerpiece of his climate policy, the Clean Electricity Performance Program, which was going to be the bulk of the Build Back Better Act that would actually get our electricity grid from being made up of coal and gas electricity to be renewable and carbon-free. And it would have created 8 million jobs. All because Joe Manchin, a coal millionaire, had said that he didn't like it. He didn't want it. And the next day, we got on another call, and each of us was far more grounded in the stakes. And my friend Ketis and my friend Julie said, we're going to do this. And I was thinking about the courage that they were saying in saying yes to going on the hunger strike. And I was thinking about how 5 years prior, I had been watching on my phone as private police and state troopers in South Dakota had used fire hoses on the indigenous water protectors who were battling to stop the Dakota Access Pipeline. And I remember watching as they used rubber bullets and they set dogs on the indigenous water protectors. And I remember at that time, it had lit a spark in me. I had said, I want to go. I want to be there. I want to be the type of person who stands up instead of letting the private police and the fossil fuel companies have their way, destroying our lives. But at that time, I was studying in Sweden, so I was 4,400 miles away, and I couldn't make my way to South Dakota at the time. But that Saturday night, I was remembering that moment. And Ketis and Julie said yes, and I said, yes, I will be there too. And so 2 days later, we came to Washington, D.C. And our other friends, Emma and Abby, said that they would join too. So 5 of us prepared. And that Wednesday, October 20th, we set up our chairs in front of the White House, and we held our signs, and we skipped breakfast. The hunger strike was very, very challenging, physically and emotionally. But the more days that we were out there, the more momentum we got. And some members of Congress, Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush and Rashida Tlaib, came and visited us and said, thank you for putting your bodies on the line. We need you showing that courage so that we can have the courage to fight inside these halls of power. And I had an opportunity to speak directly with Secretary John Kerry, the President's Special Envoy for Climate. I asked him, how are you going to use the full powers of the presidency to deliver on your own promises? And he gave me some excuses and some wishy-washy platitudes. Really disappointing. We confronted Senator Tina Smith, and then last Thursday, 100 of us woke up very early and greeted Senator Joe Manchin at his yacht and followed him as he got into his Maserati, and we blocked him for a little while as he was trying to get to work. For our whole lives, for pretty much everybody here, the fossil fuel CEOs and executives have had their way in DC, continuing to delay federal climate legislation that we all need. And each of us here knows that this is a battle and fight for our lives. And I'm thinking about how 7 years ago I was at my first Ignatian family teach-in, and Padre Melo, a Honduran priest and human rights activist, spoke to us about his organizing and activism in Honduras. And yesterday, you probably heard Kaya talk about the great privilege and responsibility that we have being here in the United States, in this country. 2 years after I went to that Ignatian family teach-in, Berta Cáceres was assassinated by U.S.-supported paramilitary troops in Honduras, one of Padre Melo's close friends, because she had been defending the land and the water from some exploitive energy companies. So each of us has an opportunity today to step into that courage and that line of witnesses and organizers and people who have fought for each of us. So I know that some of you will be going in to meet with your representatives today, and some of you will be going back home. And I want to ask you to think about how right now the lobbyists are doing everything they can to weaken and gut the Build Back Better Act. And we need to have enough people power to force our legislators to do the right thing. And finally, fight for the people instead of those fossil fuel lobbyists. Our last shot at federal climate policy was in 2009. We do not have another decade to waste. So we can have clean air and clean water. We can stop the fossil fuel projects, and we can shut down the refineries that have been polluting black and brown communities. But it's going to take each of us stepping up, thinking about our stake. What is our story? Why does this matter to me? And demanding from our representatives in your meetings that transformational change that we need. And then after that, I want to ask you to continue to organize in your communities. Maybe that looks like canvassing or phone banking for people running for Congress who will actually fight for the health and well-being of our communities. Maybe that looks like organizing and starting a Sunrise Movement hub at your school. I can help you do that. Or maybe that looks like organizing your city or your state to pass a Green New Deal locally. Berta Cáceres used to say they are more afraid of us because we are not afraid of them. And on my Kairos retreat in high school, I remember learning that hatred is not the opposite of love, but fear is. So it might feel a little scary confronting your members of Congress and your senators. But I want you to remember that we have love. And that's the opposite of fear. I want you to choose that love because they are more afraid of us because we are not afraid of them. Thanks.
Yeah.